The Justice Department is opening a criminal probe into New York Attorney General Letitia James, the latest example of the Trump administration targeting a longtime Trump political adversary. At least that's the way he views it. She certainly views it as doing her job when it comes to following the law. Now, James sued, on that note, Donald Trump and his company for fraud, a case she won. Sources tell CNN 2 grand jury subpoenas have been issued to James's office. The probe is said to be about whether James violated President Trump's rights. So this is Trump-picked U.S. attorney in New York, looking into whether James violated Donald Trump's rights. That is what is going on here. Bryn, I'm glad that you're here, so you can help explain what has actually been filed and what we really think is going on here.
Yeah, well, Dana, let's first put this out there. The fact that, the DOJ is investigating Letitia James. If you were to make a list of sort of political adversaries that Trump finds in the state of New York, Letitia James would probably be at the very top of that list. And now this is the second investigation into Letitia James by the FBI, the DOJ. And essentially this one, as we're learning from Kara Scannell's sources, is that 2 subpoenas have been issued, basically looking, as you said, Dana, into whether or not James's office violated the constitutional rights of Donald Trump, his sons, the company, before filing that civil lawsuit, which, of course, we covered, for several months long, where Trump testified himself, his son testified, and essentially he was found liable, had to pay millions of dollars and is appealing that right now. You can see there at this point, it's nearly $500 million when you bring in the interest. So this is certainly something that does not have a good look to it when we talk about the DOJ sort of being used as a weaponization, as Letitia James' office would call it, when they are filing these subpoenas. So what we are learning now from James's office, we did get a statement from her attorney, Abby Lowell, who says this weaponizing, the Department of Justice to try to punish an elected official for doing her job is an attack on the rule of law and a dangerous escalation of this administration. The DOJ is refusing to comment about these subpoenas. It's also important to note that we don't exactly know where this investigation stands right now. We just have this information about those grand jury subpoenas being filed. So we'll see where this goes, Dana.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that, Bryn. And back at the table, the fact that the claim is that Letitia James violated Donald Trump's civil rights.
Well, the president has made no secret of wanting to seek retribution against his adversaries, and this is one that he has had a long-going clash with, I think, since, and Isaac can correct me here, 2018 when she first ran. So this has been an ongoing tense relationship between the two of them. Now we're seeing that come to fruition, and I think this is just the latest example.
And just as a reminder, Letitia James led the civil suit, against Trump and his sons, saying that he inflated the value of the Trump org's properties. And then in February of 2024, the judge up there found Trump liable, ordered him to pay $450 million, and now that is being appealed.
Just for clarity for folks, the reason why Priscilla and I keep referencing Isaac on all New York and national politics things is he is our actual expert on all New York and actual politics things. The one thing I always think about with this, and we've seen a lot of this over the course of the last couple of months, when the president said on the campaign trail that he was going to seek retribution and revenge, and that his campaign team very quickly tried to walk that back behind the scenes, and then gave the president a line about, no, I just want revenge for the American people, or I just want the success for the American people.
Meant it.
And how many things have we seen that the president said out loud during the campaign, advisors tried to massage or maybe sound less aggressive or radical in the traditional sense, that has been exactly what he has done when he walked into office, and this seems to be an example of that. We'll see how it plays out going forward, but it seems to be that way.
Jack Smith. They are looking into whether he violated the Hatch Act, which is not criminal. Of course, he was hired to be the special counsel looking into Donald Trump on a couple of pretty big issues. The FBI director, the former CIA director, Adam Schiff, the former president, Barack Obama, and it goes on and on.
Yeah, and look, when it comes to Tish James, this is, Bryn mentioned there is another.
The DOJ is first trying to notify the individuals that may come up in these exhibits before they're unsealed. What does this filing now open up, and what does it mean for the timing we could see?
So let's take a step back. Today was the deadline for the Department of Justice to tell the two judges in the Epstein and Maxwell cases, respectively, whether or not they also want the exhibits that were shown to witnesses at the grand jury to be unsealed themselves. And today they've said, yes, they want them unsealed. However, with appropriate redactions, not only for the victims, but for other parties who are personally identified therein. And that's interesting because that means that they will need some additional time, they say in today's letter, to notify anybody who's mentioned in the exhibits, but it's not otherwise mentioned in the transcript. They want until next week, and specifically August 14th, to do that. This whole thing, in terms of at least the briefing, was supposed to be wrapped up earlier this week. So with each new filing, the Department of Justice seemingly is kicking the can down the road, buying itself time, allegedly to notify people, but also, from a victim's perspective, turning this into a drip, drip, drip that is all the more excruciatingly painful from their perspective.
So speaking of that, I know you were just in our break getting more information from the lawyer from several of the victims. What are they saying?
So Jack Scarola, who represents several of Jeffrey Epstein's victims, got back in touch with me. I asked him for a comment on the letter, and he said, the pursuit of grand jury materials and transcripts is a useless and intentional distraction. We will learn nothing by chasing that rabbit. What can and should be immediately disclosed are the 80-plus page prosecution memorandum and the 50-plus page federal indictment that got buried when Alex Acosta, and there he's talking about the former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida when Jeffrey Epstein cut that infamous deal in 2007, cut that sweetheart deal with Epstein. The answers that need to be pursued are why the federal government would ever enter into an agreement granting blanket immunity to named and unnamed co-conspirators and then agree to actively conceal their sweetheart deal. Why isn't Acosta at the top of the list of witnesses subpoenaed to appear before Congress?
Good questions. So, Will, how is all of this drip, drip, drip of information playing out with the conspiracy theorists and the QAnoners?
I mean, look, I think a lot of Trump supporters in that sort of conspiracy theory world who were so focused on Epstein, they haven't been swayed. I mean, Epstein is a little out of the news. The administration has managed to throw up a lot of distractions to the base right now. But at the same time, when I look at internet comments, when I look at sort of grassroots online sentiment, there are a lot of people who are saying, why are we cutting a deal with Ghislaine Maxwell? Or why is she being transferred to this minimum security prison? I think they still have a lot of questions about her. And this idea the administration is putting so much effort into saying, well, we'll talk to Ghislaine Maxwell, we'll release these transcripts in a way that seems to be a very limited attempt to sort of just put out a little information and hopefully buy off the base. I don't think it's working yet.
Will, I just have to ask you, there's some confusion, in my mind at least, about why Ghislaine Maxwell would be of benefit in this situation. You would think that those who are the deepest believers in this conspiracy theory would see any interaction with her as a bad thing.
And I think a lot of them do. I mean, I think even for people who are sort of off in this conspiracy theory land and as well as Trump supporters who are more sort of reality based and a lot of these independent voters who voted for Trump, I think they do say, I mean, look, they see Ghislaine Maxwell, I think not unreasonably, as a very sinister person, a person who's committed a lot of crimes and deserves to be serving a lengthy prison term. And now suddenly the Trump administration is pivoting and saying, well, maybe Ghislaine has the answers. We've seen some right wing media outlets like Newsmax saying maybe Ghislaine was a victim the whole time. That is a hard pill to swallow, and I don't think a lot of people are getting on board with it.
And Tara, good to see you again. We worked together at a previous network I won't mention. But you say that you have, frankly, no patience for MAGA's whining about how long this Epstein saga has dragged on. In your mind, how bad are the optics for the White House now?
Well, it's clearly terrible for them. It's dragged on virtually the entire summer. It's dominated the discussion, and mainly it's self-inflicted. And the idea that anyone inside MAGA world would try to pivot away from Donald Trump basically protecting a predator by claiming that Ghislaine Maxwell is a victim in any way is just outrageous. She's no victim. She is a monster. She engaged in some of these horrific sexual acts against young women and children alongside Jeffrey Epstein. People forget this. And I think the longer that this discussion goes on and the longer this is in the news, the more that we have the opportunity to shine a light on how awful she is and how terrible the Epstein episode and saga was for hundreds, if not thousands, of women. So, you know, the idea that Donald Trump is somehow cooperating now and that they're going to do everything they can to release it is just nonsense. His own people who are unqualified for their jobs, frankly, were installed in positions of power, unfortunately, so that they could do his bidding. And one of the things they promised to do was release the Epstein files. Pam Bondi said they were on the client list and the files are on her desk. That was February. It's August. They're still talking about this. What if you are innocent and there's nothing to hide and that you clearly want justice for the victims and survivors here, because that's really what this should be about, then just release what you can release. This whole thing about the courts and worrying about what grand jury materials they can release, it is all a ruse. And Lisa explained why. And because they have a tranche of materials that they could release right now that has nothing to do with the judges. In fact, there's an 8-year-old FOIA case that was brought by Radar Online of all outlets that actually has tens of thousands of pages that they could release from a FOIA case from 8 years ago, which would actually show more information. There could be bank records, phone conversations, all kinds of things that could be released right now. So that's what they should do, but they have a lot to hide and every reason for people to be upset that Donald Trump continues to protect predators.
And I know you had said you have no patience for MAGA's whining on this, and now you've outlined why that is. Will, the Epstein outrage has maybe died down somewhat. You alluded to it. We're talking about Ghislaine Maxwell a lot more than Epstein these days. This is also coinciding.
It's not going to go as Trump wanted. The DOJ releasing this, I know on the surface it's like, well, they're doing it because Trump is telling them and they're trying to massage it. But also, I think Pam Bondi wants pressure off her own back. Don't you think? That this allows her to kind of do Trump's bidding, quote unquote, but also get the pressure off her and then throw it onto Trump. And I want to make this very clear that so far, everyone thinks they're playing 4D chess, Trump and his people. They're not. Everything we've learned that's incriminated, culturally incriminated. Trump has not been charged yet with anything in this affair. Culturally, embroils him in this scandal. Has been stuff we've learned from Trump and his people. They're the ones that made it a story. Pam Bondi was the one that said she had the list on her desk. Her saying that is maybe the single biggest reason why the scandal blew up. Because, Trump said, oh, we'll release the list. It would have been one thing if he was elected and he was like, oh, Joe Biden destroyed the list. BS, but he could have made that up, right? Pam Bondi said she had the list on her desk while she was AG and Trump was president. She screwed Donald there. But it's also, we learned about, why Trump was no longer friends with Epstein. It turns out that, they were stealing. He was stealing girls from him, right? He was stealing young employees from him. And then what we find out that there was confirmed that Pam Bondi, and they made this public. They didn't deny it to Pam Bondi's DOJ, that there were meetings between Trump's former personal lawyer and now one of her her employees at the DOJ. Meeting with Maxwell, and then lo and behold, she gets a new appointment to a nicer prison. Ultimately, I think that's ultimately under the authority of Pam Bondi. Every decision Bondi has made, I guess, could be understood as an effort for her to cover her own behind, but also every decision she's made has made Donald look more guilty than he was a couple months ago.